Hello, everyone. I am going to talk to you today about Edward Thorndike, and he is most famous in the psychology world because he studied the behaviors and learning, and his theories and his discoveries actually led to a lot of the behaviorist theories that are there today that were created by B.F. Skinner and Ivan Pavlov, and a lot of what he discovered we use in the classroom as well. Before we discuss the contributions that Thorndike made to education, I think it's important to look at the background and discuss his contributions that he created in the psychology world. He laid a lot of foundations for testing, for behavior, for just anything that we can use in the classroom, but all of that kind of goes with the psychology, and the psychology of learning primarily. Just so you can have a little bit of history about Edward Thorndike, and a little bit of his background information. He was born August 31st in 1874 in Williamsburg, Massachusetts, and he died August 9th, 1949 in Montrose, New York. His undergrad degree he got from Wesleyan University, and his master's degree he got when he studied animal behavior under Professor William James from Harvard University, and then his PhD he received from Columbia University. So I'm going to give you two things right now of what Thorndike's contribution to the psychology world involved. And the first one is the law of effect, and that was followed by the law of exercise. So the law of effect is essentially and basically, if a behavior is quickly followed by a reward, then that behavior should be repeated. And if it's repeated enough, followed by the same reward, something favorable and something good, then that behavior will become a pattern and become a habit. So after the law of effect, Thorndike created the law of exercise, which is exactly what it sounds like. The more you exercise that habit, that it's followed by the favorable reward, it'll stay, and then kind of the same goes with anything that's negative. The least amount of time you spend on something that's a negative behavior, that behavior will eventually die out. So what happened was with the law of exercise is that the more he studied and the more he observed people, he found that that law did not hold any validity. So he tweaked the law of effect, went back after the law of exercise didn't find validity, tweaked the law of effect to state what I said earlier, that the more you repeat the behavior with a good reward, it'll become a habit. Another one of Thorndike's contributions to the psychology world, which will directly tie in to what we do as teachers and in the education system, is his study of intelligence. And he basically narrowed it down to 3 levels of intellect. And those 3 levels, you have abstract intelligence, which is your basic standard intelligence. Mechanical intelligence, when you understand that there's a relationship between material objects, and then you have social intelligence. It kind of how you are around other people and who you are around other people, your relationships, your interpersonal relationships is the social intelligence. Now we move on to his contributions to the educational world. A lot of these we probably already use, even in our daily life with our children and coworkers, everything. But the biggest one he said was that reward is the key to learning, and that a good classroom and a good teacher will promote correct answers, meaning, lead the student to find the correct answer and then follow it up with favorable rewards. And hopefully that will establish the pattern of learning, and the students will want to continue to learn in that classroom. Another one of Thorndike's impacts in education is that he claimed that the key to learning and education goes back to specific habit formation. and he kind of gave a formula for a successful teacher in a successful classroom. And what it is the teacher will strategically order activities, put them in order of importance and order of how the students are going to learn. And then the second step is to practice. Keep going over those activities and follow it up with a reward. And then the third thing was to frequently measure the progress with assessments and testing. So Thorndike had so much impact in psychology and in education, but we had to limit it. And, so the third one that I'm going to give to you is his studies and what he came up with intelligence testing. And so a lot of the intelligence tests that he created laid the foundation for the aptitude tests that we have today, the standardized achievement test that we all love to hate, but are really useful because of statistics. And he made teaching and education into a science, so that we could look to see how kids were performing and what they were studying and how they were studying and how they were learning. So all of those intelligence tests that we all love to hate are super important. There was really only one criticism of everything that Thorndike gave to the psychology world and the education world, and that basically boils down to Thorndike limiting behavior to just a stimulus and a response, not giving it any sort of connection genetically or any other psychological connections there. It was all just behavior was a stimulus and then you have a response. So as far as criticisms go, I think that's it's fair. I agree with that criticism because a lot of what but that is what he studied. He studied the psychology of learning, which is a stimulus and response and how people are going to behave that way. My criticism of Thorndike's discoveries and everything that he contributed to really just boils down to rewards. Kids don't always respond the way you want them to because you give them a piece of candy or yes, please go clean the dishes, here's a dime or a piece of chocolate. It's not always going to work. I have 2 kids and I know that rewards don't always work. They have willpower, they have intuition, they've got drive and gumption. They don't always respond to money and candy. So as a teacher, that happens as well.